Most people think boundaries are a discipline problem. For faith-driven professionals, they are usually a guilt problem. You already know you probably should say no more often, so I don't need to spend a lot of time on that. The issue is what happens inside of you when that moment comes. A simple request does not stay simple for long. It starts to feel personal. It starts to feel like it's a moral or a spiritual issue. You feel the weight of disappointing someone. You feel the pressure of being needed. And then all of a sudden, the lines disappear. The lines between love and obligation, between service and survival, between who you are and what you owe. So you say yes. And maybe at first it feels fine. Maybe it even feels right at first. But over time, something starts to change. You're still helping, but you aren't excited anymore. You're still showing up, but your peace is leaving. You're still being useful, but you are paying for it in other areas that are more valuable. In those places that really matter, your patience gets thinner. Your mind stays full. Your family gets a more distracted version of you. Your closest relationships and your most valuable clients get what's left. Even your sense of calling can get lost underneath everything you keep agreeing to. And somewhere underneath all of that, you know something is off. You know your yes is not always coming from clarity. You know some of your willingness is being driven by pressure. Some of what you are calling faithfulness is actually overextension. That's what I want to talk with you about today. By the end of this video, I want you to have a different way of thinking about boundaries. Don't think about them as a tool for becoming less caring or more guarded. I want you to see them as a way of becoming clearer so that you can stay aligned with what you are actually called to do. Faith-driven professionals aren't struggling with boundaries because they don't care enough. They are struggling because they care deeply. But caring deeply and knowing how to protect what your calling is are two different things, two very different things. And no one has taught you the difference. If this has been hard for you, it may be because you are faithful. You are the type of person that people trust. You're dependable, you're thoughtful, you care about doing right by people. You don't want to be careless with other people's needs. You want your life to matter. You want to contribute. You want to show up in the marketplace in a way that's useful, grounded, and impactful. That's a good thing. But that type of faithfulness creates a certain type of pressure. Over time, you become the person that people lean on, the person that makes room for everybody else, the one who absorbs the extra weight. You end up carrying a lot more than most people realize. And because you are a person of faith, you won't always name the pressure for what it really is. You may call it service or responsibility or love. You may just call it being there for people. And since you don't identify the pressure properly, some decisions feel heavier than they should. That's why sometimes, even though you have good intentions, later on you start to feel frustrated. And that's why your schedule can be filled with good things while your inner life feels crowded. So before we even talk about what boundaries are, we need to identify what's happening underneath the struggle. A lot of faith-driven professionals are saying yes from the wrong internal place, not from peace, but from guilt and obligation, and from the fear of disappointing people. The discomfort of saying no feels like you are being selfish, or somehow you're being less faithful than you want to be. And once that becomes your pattern, it starts costing you more than you realize. It affects your clarity, your emotional steadiness, your personal authority. It affects your ability to be present in your relationships. It affects your ability to stay aligned in the places where your contribution matters the most. Because when guilt starts making your decisions, you don't just overfill your calendar. You start saying yes too quickly because disappointing someone in the moment feels harder than dealing with the consequences later on. Just because something is worth doing doesn't mean it's worth you doing it. This is why becoming more efficient doesn't solve the problem. Because if you misdiagnose the problem, you will keep trying to fix it in all the wrong places. You'll tell yourself that you need better time management, that you need more discipline, and you'll just keep trying to organize your life better. And maybe some of that helps a little, but if the deeper issue is guilt, no amount of efficiency is going to solve that. Which brings me to the deeper issue. The deeper issue is clarity. A lot of people think they struggle with boundaries because they don't know how to say no. Sometimes the deeper truth is that they aren't fully clear on what God has asked them to do. And when you are a faithful person, but your assignment is unclear, almost everything starts to feel personal. Every need feels like it might belong to you. Every request feels like something you should probably make room for. Man, that's exhausting. I'm getting tired just thinking about it. At that point, you're not just making decisions. You're sorting through guilt. You're trying to be faithful without fully knowing where your responsibility actually ends. That is why setting boundaries is tough for faithful people. We are trying to create external structure without enough internal clarity. Boundaries get stronger as your assignment gets clearer. The clearer you are about your calling, the easier it is to recognize what's outside of that assignment. There are real needs in this world that aren't your assignment. There are good opportunities that aren't your responsibility. There are people you can care deeply about without having to carry the people. And if you never learn that, your good intentions will keep pulling you outside of your grace level. So this is not just about learning to say no. It's about learning to tell the truth about responsibility. One of the reasons I care so much about this is because it impacted me. I had to learn the hard way. There are so many examples. I'll tell you one. I wanted to improve my speaking skills, so I joined Toastmasters. That was the reason I came. I wanted to practice and sharpen my communication and grow in that type of environment where other people are doing the same thing. But somewhere along the way, I got pulled into leadership responsibilities. Even as I think about it now, I kind of understand why. I love the organization. And to be clear, I really enjoyed that time and I had a lot of fun. But when I started noticing was that instead of coming to the meetings, focusing on growing as a speaker, I was carrying the meetings in my mind. I was thinking about the agenda, who was supposed to speak, what we were going to do if someone fell through, and how we were going to fill the time when people didn't do their part. Although I grew through that experience, it's not what I really wanted. I wanted to improve my communication, but I ended up carrying responsibilities that were competing with the real reason I was there. That taught me something important. I can contribute without being in charge. And if I don't protect that type of clarity, even good opportunities can slowly pull me out of alignment. That's why I don't think boundaries are mainly about shutting down opportunities. I think they are about protecting clarity, so you don't end up taking ownership of things that were never yours to carry. I care about faith-driven professionals showing up in the marketplace. I care about people who want to contribute and lead, build, serve, and make the world stronger through the way that they show up. I don't want to see faith-driven people pulling back from their calling because they're exhausted. I don't want to see good-hearted people disappearing inside everyone else's demands. I don't want to see people who are capable of real contribution losing their clarity because they never learned how to protect what God actually put in their hands. That's why I'm not talking about boundaries as some generic self-help concept. I'm talking about them as stewardship. The answer is not for you to become harder. The answer is for you to become clearer. I want you to be clear about the season you're in. I want you to be clearer about what you are responsible for. I want you to be clearer about how you can show up with peace, grace, and authority. Don't call faithfulness what is really overextension. And once you see boundaries that way, You don't feel like you're rejecting people. You feel like you're just being honest. So here's the reframe I want to leave you with. A boundary is not rejection. It's not selfish, and it's not becoming cold or detached. A boundary is the honest acknowledgement that feeling something deeply doesn't mean it's your assignment. That is a very different way to think about it. You can care without carrying everything. You can love people without overcommitting yourself to every need. You can be available to serve without making yourself endlessly overextended. The goal is to become the kind of person whose compassion is guided by clarity. That's healthier, that's stronger, and that's what allows your contribution to remain sustainable over time. So if boundaries have been hard for you, your conclusion shouldn't be that you are weak or you're failing. It may simply mean that you are faithful, you care deeply, but you've been trying to carry too much. Faithfulness requires more than sincerity. It requires discernment, stewardship, and the courage to let peace, not guilt, shape your decisions. If this conversation surfaced something for you, then it's probably a good moment to not just reflect, but to get honest about how you show up under pressure. I help faith-driven professionals grow in their personal authority so that they can live and lead with more clarity, alignment, and confidence under pressure. If you've been asking yourself, am I saying yes from peace or from pressure, and you aren't fully sure how to answer that question, the authority assessment I created was built exactly for that kind of moment. It will help you see where you may be carrying something that was never really yours. You'll learn how pressure may be shaping your decisions and what stronger alignment could look like for you. You can find the link in the description below. I'm Coach Arnold, and I hope this video was a blessing for you. Thanks for spending this time with me, and I'll see you in the next video.